Just give it a few seconds.
Do 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 do.
And we're live. Okay, I think the volume issues with the volume has been fixed. I'm hopefully coming across louder. I hope. I'm having no problems hearing UDP, and I believe he's having no problems hearing me, and you guys, I guess, can hear us just as well. Yeah, for some reason, the Discord volume was cranked really low, and I was like, what the hell? Why did that happen? I don't know. So, anyway, what we were trying to say is this wonderful thing on the screen you can see is WhatCulture made a video about Mass Effect, the top 10 ways, perfect ways, not just the top 10, but the perfect ways Bioware can save the franchise. And that's a good question, because I think the franchise is pretty much gone. So I don't know what is actually the best way to do it, aside from a reboot or a rebrand, maybe make a new science fiction. Well, obviously they can't make a new science fiction aside from Anthem, because that didn't go anywhere. And I know we haven't really talked about Anthem since release, because there's really nothing more to say aside from it sucks. And maybe it'll get better, but I'm not, going to regurgitate all the wonderful comments and other videos people have been making. Obviously, if you go on YouTube, you'll see all kinds of negative responses. Even shills or people who have been paid by Bioware to make ads and stuff like that, even they are saying, yeah, it's not good. You have to wait till April till they start doing the actual raids, like the storms, whatever the crazy storms that we saw in the reveal trailer years ago. So there's a lot of content not coming out. There's a lot of bugs. There's a lot of samey enemies, a lot of boring AI, a lot of loot that is just crap, if not all the loot.
It pretty much is.
It's strange. I wonder why they bothered to design a game that's a looter shooter when it has crappy loot. What's the point? I don't get it.
Like some of the higher tier stuff's really bizarre. It's like 15% extra chance of gaining an ammunition drop. And you're just like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. And plus, you have to wait and then do all these other things to build, like craft your own stuff. It doesn't sound like fun.
That was one of the most bizarre things that happened with me in the demo. I think it still is in the main game. The mere fact of, let's say, you got an item equipped, and you want to, let's say, equip a new item, you want to salvage the other one. You have to click on the one that you want, then go out of the forge, then relog back into the forge, which means another loading screen to then salvage the weapon that has now been deselected. It's like you can't just pick up a weapon and just kind of go bolt it onto you like every other game has done since games have been around. It's not like Super Mario needed to have an entire new loading screen every time he picked up a flower.
Well, it's kind of interesting because some of the guns look good. I mean, obviously they have skills for your mechs and what have you. But when I was watching Angry Joe's video just this morning, I was like, there's no variation. It's just like there's 8 types, but they're all the same, and the stats are the only thing that's different. And the special things like the bonuses don't even work right, or they're useless. The bonuses, like percentage of damage or whatever. It's like that's not good.
Yeah.
That's sad. That's like really sad. They've had 7 years to make this thing?
Yeah. This to me kind of screams of... I'm going to go on a bit of a limb here. I'm going tinfoil hat moment. I reckon Anthem was the salvaging of Project Dylan. Basically, Project Dylan was such a disaster in production that they just had to scrounge up something. They went, right, what's popular? What can we make out of this mess? And then they just went with it. And the trailer that we saw in 2017 was I'd call them reassurance trailers, because it's a reassurance for EA's investors. Like, it's not for our benefit, it's for the investors' benefit, because they're not gamers. They don't know what bullshotting is and things like that. They just sort of see, oh, right, that's gameplay, because it looks like gameplay.
Maybe, because that trailer, which I could have sworn was pre-rendered from 2016 or whatever, says it was real time. And everyone who saw that said, wow, that looks really good. Like, that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
But we do know that even AAA games like The Witcher 3 had a downgrade. You can't really tell, but when you compare it to their marketing videos, oh yeah, it's obvious there's a big downgrade. But you know what? I didn't hear anyone really complain about The Witcher 3's graphics. You know, they did a pretty decent job. And so did Anthem. Like, if there's anything you could say that's good about the game, is it looks great. They did a lot of effort to make the world beautiful, to flying feel good. Not going to, fault them on doing something that people can appreciate. They like the glitz, they like the glamour, they like the explosion. I think they did a little too much with the explosions, honestly. Some scenes, I'm like, what, is this a game or is this like an explosive movie you're watching?
Yeah, right. It's like an artist throwing paint at a wall.
It's like, boom, what? I can't see the enemy anymore. I can't see anything anymore. It's like you're playing a 5-on-5 League of Legends match where everyone hits their ultimate and just things start blowing up and you're just like, I don't know what's going on. So that's what it looked like. And
oh, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what else is there to say positively about Anthem. People are making jokes about the loading screens. I think that was a given. You're going to get loading screens. The thing is, we didn't know how long they would be. And it depends on your hard drive. It depends on your graphics card. It's just like, this is bad. This is during gameplay.
Well, that kind of goes against the idea of an open world, because that's what open world does. That the idea is that you don't need a loading screen. Everything's dynamically loaded.
Right.
But the fact that Bioware still can't do that, I'm not sure whether that's a restriction or they just don't have the means to build it. But like in the demo, I forgot to mention this actually, but the demo really demonstrated this, just the sheer ineptitude of it. Like, you do the story mission, and the story is you go into a loading screen, you go to there, you hit F, then you have to walk out of the area. You don't fight anything, you don't do anything meaningful, you just hit F. Plot goes, you literally hit F to continue plot, then you walk out again to go into the loading screen, to then go back to the Fort Tarsus, to then go into another loading screen to continue. So you have to go for like 4 or 5 loading screens just to continue the plot, and you haven't even shot a weapon yet. You haven't even fired anything yet. It's absolutely bizarre. It really is.
One thing I didn't understand was the lobby system. Like, I thought the lobby system made sense because it's a precursor to actually getting onto the launch pad, or where you jump off from your city and then you go into the jungle. But it was just redundant. It was like you didn't need to have that extra step. And because there's even more loading, because that's the point where you talk to people. It's like, okay, you want to go out? It's like, well, yeah, we're going out. We're ready to go. And then you actually go out. Like, okay, you ready to go again? It's like, yeah, we still want to go. So I don't know if they're messing things up, because they just made that lobby system a few weeks ago. And
God.
I don't know if they actually tested it to know if it was effective or useful or why. And then there's the whole point of whose mission are you on? Who do you follow? Who actually presses the button? Like, it's just this weird system of, they haven't figured out how these things are supposed to work. And that's not a sign of a polished game. That's a sign of a project that's just sort of being made at piecemeal. There's no quality control. There's no person saying, hey, we have to do these 20 things or the player experience will suck. And this is just a player experience. This is not the storytelling, the sound. There's a big glitch where the sound just gets killed and you have to reboot the entire game. It's just this bizarre series of bugs. And it's just Mass Effect Andromeda all over again, but with the main studio, which is frightening.
And the Montreal studio was the less experienced one. What does that say about Edmonton?
All the Mass Effect Andromeda guys blaming the Montreal studio several years ago. It's like, yeah. I don't think so, guys. I think that was business as usual not with EA, but with Bioware. And if we could say anything about EA having any involvement, we can't say exactly. But we can say they didn't have an involvement with Andromeda. We can say they have involvement with Anthem. But we can say they did not have involvement with Apex. Because Apex seems to just come out of nowhere. Just, whoa, game, that's fun and popular. And it has an EA title associated with it. But I don't think they actually launched it. There was no marketing. I can't remember any what they did was got a bunch of
pro streamers, put them under an NDA for during their closed beta period, and then they just released it. You know,
Yeah,
it was nice and simple. That was it.
and it's a fantastic game. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah, I've been playing a lot of it actually. So I like it. I don't like battle royales because they're kind of an anti deathmatch kind of game, but that one, because of its slick move and the fact that you have to spend a lot of time, well, if you have to repair your shields and your health, it takes you a little bit longer than most other games, and it's not about some guy in a bush having a wank that's going to snipe you away at 500 meters. You know, it actually rewards you for pushing forward.
Well, I haven't seen it, but all the reviews, all the response has been very positive. There's now a whole culture surrounding the game. There's all these people, these whales, spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on randomized loot. It's like, oh, here we go. This is not good. Yeah. But yeah, it's whatever works for the community. Obviously, there's a quality issue here, and Bioware is just not aware of. I don't think there's enough eyes on Bioware products these days to tell them it's not working, or the design team is just not getting enough feedback before they go to production. It's very scary that they're doing this way.
I just think that they're spending too much time and money on things that someone just needs to say, no, you can't do that. With the technology and the resources that you have right now, you just can't do that. And I just think they're just like with Andromeda, with the if someone told you to do procedural generated worlds in the Frostbite engine, you're just like, whoever thought that just needs to jump off a bridge. Just get rid of you, because to think like that is insane. And have content.
Yeah, the assumption is that the next game will not have procedural generated worlds. They will be Frostbite for sure. I can't see Bioware just like retooling again to do another game, and it's probably going to be Dragon Age. That seems like the next step. So, Dragon Age, my God, what have they done? We don't know yet. There's literally nothing aside from that stupid trailer reveal, teaser trailer that was just nonsense. A repeat of the ending of the Dragon Age 4 DLC. It's like, okay, whatever you're doing, Bioware, you better knock it out of the park, because I don't know if Anthem's going to work. I mean, by work, I mean be financially successful, because it's a very different beast than Andromeda. Andromeda is like a one purchase thing. If it's great, they'll make DLC and make more money. But with Anthem, you have like 3 months for this thing to get good, because that's the thing they laid out. But roughly a 3-month project. So if there's enough players to hang around and spend money, and if it's successful, then good on them. They actually have a self-sustaining, maybe it could be non-self-sustaining, but it's going to turn some sort of money. And whether it's profitable, we don't know, but that will really tell a lot. This year will tell a lot of what's going to happen to Bioware. And the first blog post we saw, was it yesterday or today, of going into the bargain bin? It's like, oh.
Yeah, one angry gamer saying that some places in Europe it's already on sale. It's like it's having been out after a day. Yeah, the whole 6 million things. There's actually an article, I have to show it to you, whereby Aaron Flynn, who was general manager of Bioware at the time, he said that Andromeda was going to sell 5 million copies at full price tag within its first quarter. And I think, and that's one, if you fall short under EA's, what do you call it now? EA's kind of perception of what your predicted sales. Like the exact same thing happened with Dead Space 3. They're like, you need to sell at least 4 million copies or else you bust.
To be a blockbuster, to be an actual,
in order to actually continue supporting the game, like content, like actual content, DLCs, and potential sequels. And they've fallen short of that. That's why Andromeda and Montreal got packed up. And if Anthem fails, I don't think Edmonton's gone. I reckon that the Austin studio is on the chopping block. Like they're just going to close that down if Anthem performs pretty darn poorly. But that's just my prediction.
Yeah, again, we thought this studio was done years ago, but again, Dragon Age made a profit, so if something's profitable, EA will keep it.
Yes, Store, they managed to turn it around finally. We're making money out of it. Yeah, because I think after when Store released, like half the staff was laid off or something like that. It was a ridiculous number of people that actually got fired from Bioware Austin.
Oh, jeez. You know, all these. We're gonna watch a video on the 10 perfect ways to make Bioware bring back Mass Effect, but I think the issue is not Mass Effect. I think the issue is just Bioware to keep it afloat. And the only rule I can say is just make good story-based games. And all you do is look back at what you've. Well, not. Let's not look back at what they've done, because that's not the best example to make a story-based game. But look back at like the games that are consistently good, like Planescape Torment, Vampire Bloodlines. You know, what made those games great and why? And it's all come back to story and character and storytelling. And that's it. That's all you have to do. Whether you want to make it action-oriented or turn-based or like a point-and-click adventure, it doesn't really make much of a difference. We want characters that we can appreciate and identify with and like, fall in love with, whatever the emotion you want to associate, and just enjoy the interaction, enjoy the dialogue, the voice acting, the world you're in. I would love to see another Mass Effect game. Of course I would. And not necessarily an Andromeda game, because again, that's outside of the universe or galaxy that I want to see. It's kind of like I want to see another Star Trek movie or another Star Trek series, but I want to actually be in the Gene Roddenberry's world. I don't want to be in some weird action J.J. Abrams blowing up crap world. I don't want that. We want what we're used to, what you've given us and what works. Don't spin things on up top and guess what's going to come next just because it has the franchise name on it. Don't do that. So yeah, let's go through this video, because I'm very curious what because these are fans of the franchise. What's her name? The girl who actually went to the
Space camp.
Yeah, she actually went and played Andromeda and said, oh, it's fun, it's this and that. And then your last 10 minutes of the interview, it's like, ooh, yeah, there were game-breaking bugs and things weren't ready and sound stopped, had to reboot. It's like, whoa, wait a second. That's not good to hear. So, yeah, let's go through this stuff and see what they have to say.
Do we really want more Mass Effect after the mess that was the last couple of entries into the franchise? Why, of course we do. We're hungry little nerds who would give our left butt cheek to dive back on into Shepard's science fiction world. And no matter how far off course the series has gotten in recent years, we would all still aimlessly wander around the Citadel and bonk any passing sexy shipmates, because we're only human after all. Unfortunately though, the third installment had one of the most roundly despised endings in the history of gaming, whether rightly deserved.
Not the history of gaming, the history of history. Of storytelling and since the beginning of written word. The worst. I cannot, again, I'm still waiting for someone to tell me or show me a worse ending than the ending of Mass Effect 3. It's hard to find.
Do you think Casey's going to have like a visit from the ghosts of Plotmas past or something? Casey, this is how you write an ending.
Oh God, one of my friends on Discord was like, "Are you ever gonna review Anthem?" And I'm like, "Is there anything to review? I don't even know. I mean, would it be worth my time? I don't think it would be worth anyone's time to go through the what is it? A few cutscenes."
It's about 10 hours long. That's including gameplay as well, and loading screen. Loading screen.exe simulate.
Oh. See, I can't see myself doing that, but if they can't, again, if they can't get endings right, or if they can't even get stories right, what's the point in critiquing a plot? I mean, with Andromeda, they're trying to be serious, and there was an actual plot, as dumb as it was. But with Anthem, it's like it's an excuse to go out and shoot things and come back, and then characters that aren't you say stuff, and you're like, that's not really a story. That's like you're just doing busy work for some other guy while he tells you a story. Okay, it's basically Mass Effect 2. Yeah, essentially that's
online.
Online. And instead of having this wonderful backstory with your squad mates, it's just your friend or some random guy in the waiting room for you. You're like, oh yeah, let's go fight stuff. You're like, okay, and that's it. Like,
I like the fact that the ciphers in that game can like review your shit, like they can review like the health status, and just like you people are just Sam. You're just a biological Sam at this point. You know, it's ridiculous. Like, why does telepathy going into someone's head connect to the suit? What does the suit have? It's just like, what is the suit alive? Does it have telepathic abilities or something? What is going on?
I have to actually pay attention to the lore to know what the point of having a voice in your head is supposed to do. So,
Oh yeah, the final boss of Anthem's really hilarious because you don't even get the satisfaction of killing it. You get it down to around about like 20%, and then he dies in a cutscene. You don't even have the like every game that has. Like, I remember I used to play Borderlands, and everyone didn't like the ending to that one, which is fair enough. But at least you could bring the enemy's health down to 0. You could shoot it. You know, it wasn't like, nope, lol, nope, died in the cutscene.
all right, let's keep going.
Or not, just saying. We then gave Bioware the benefit of the doubt when resurrecting the canon for Mass Effect Andromeda, and got that blown back in our faces with scores of bugs and a narrative that did not live up to its predecessors. So really, Mass Effect 5 could go either way, but there is some key sticking points, as ever, that we want to see if we want to herald the glorious return of something that could be the next Mass Effect 2. That is the best one, and that is what we're waiting for.
Oh God, no, we're not.
Oh no.
If this is their standard, it's like, oh, that is not the best that is, I wouldn't even say it is a Mass Effect. It just happens to have the brand name and the characters. There's really no relationship between the first and the second, aside from, hey, remember what stuff happened in another game? It's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. That's what it is. It's just a bunch of like, that's what it's Mass Effect, the reference.
Yep. It is a fan fiction. No, it's a game first. Like, I think there's nothing wrong with designing a game first and then putting a story around it, or putting a sequel around a game. That's totally fine. I mean, imagine Mass Effect 2 was an RTS. It's like, oh, okay, not what I wanted, not what I was expecting. Could still be a good RTS, could still be a good story. But if you don't actually connect the two, then you're like, oh, why am I doing any of this RTS crap? Like, you have to explain that. That's what Andromeda should have had a component of, or was mostly about. Building a base, building a new life, making something, not chasing after some ket stuff or some enemies who want to make a giant tree and it's just stupid. Like, don't do that. So yeah, so Mass Effect 2, yes, great production values, wonderful characters. Not the best Mass Effect, clearly. And we can even look at sales figures for that if we want to. But other than that, let's stick to story and see what they have to say here.
Come on, BioWare, get yourselves together. As for the rest of you, whack on your N7 armor and charge up your biotics. As I'm Ash from WhatCulture, and these are 10 perfect ways BioWare can save Mass Effect 5. If it ever happens. 10. Demonstrate strong marketing and faith in the product.
Jeez. Jesus.
You mean the same marketing that was used in Mass Effect 3 to basically dupe and lie to the audience and throw the original Mass Effect audience under the bus? The one where most of the money was spent on marketing rather than the actual game itself.
Well, that could be that could be like point number 1, because BioWare is really bad at selling the product through marketing. Unless we're talking about the marketing for Mass Effect 2, which had dozens of videos. I mean, the trailer itself was one of the best gaming trailers I've ever seen for a video game. So, yeah, you need strong marketing, but it has to be accurate marketing. It has to be truthful marketing. It has to be, hey, this is actually we're saying sensible things. We're not screwing up words like water and ice, and you have some intelligence behind telling us your hard science fiction story has some diplomacy in it and choice making, because that's what you're selling us on. You're selling us on the dialogue system and talking to people. That's what you want to see. So this is not a bad point. I'm curious what she has to say about faith in the product, because that's...
Well, it's actually, when you talk about... Sorry, that's a cough then. You talk about bad marketing and whatnot, but the marketing used for Dragon Age Origins was actually quite less. EA didn't actually have that much faith in Dragon Age Origins. In fact, they were going to say it was going to be a bomb, and it was actually a sleeper hit. They weren't expecting it to be such a hit. So I think really though, it's just I think BioWare's core audience, the original BioWare fans from way back when, we will buy their product if we kind of, because the BioWare provide a lot more information. It's just not bombastic in your face. It's not on billboards. It's not on advertisements. It's not on TV spots. There's no live action or anything like that.
Well, it's a good point, but I'm curious what they mean by faith in the products. Let's just see.
Considering the story potential of what another Mass Effect could have been back in the day, fans actually got their first look at Andromeda during the unveiling of the PS4 Pro, where the game was thrown in to sell some fancy dynamic lighting effects for Sony's new system. Then, there was nothing. Nothing except multiplayer trailers and low-key, welcome to the Andromeda Initiative tidbits anyway, and nothing that even attempted to convince the masses that BioWare knew what they were doing. The assumption was that EA had granted another use of the license for nothing more than cashing in on its namesake.
I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, we said a lot more harsh things about the marketing of Andromeda, how stupid it was, how pointless, unnecessary. They had like 10-minute trailers of talking about the unfinished space station they're going to send to Andromeda. I was like, okay, like why? So yeah, a lot of crap that didn't really resonate and make a lot of sense to explain why we're doing this. Why would anyone want to do this? So, as opposed to just building off the events of Mass Effect 3, saying, hey, you know what? The Reapers are coming. Some of us agree that they are. Some of us don't. The ones that do are really, really scared. We're getting the hell out of here. Oh, yeah, I want to be part of those guys. I want to be, because I know they're real, because I'm the audience, and I just played that game, and I know what's going on. I want to be part of the guys who are smart and getting the hell out of here, and we're going to start a new life, and we have all this motivation, and we understand the reasons to do so. Perfectly good setup. Nice little side story. Boom, make a whole game out of it. Done. Nope, we're Ryder, and we're going to explore the unknown. It's like, yeah, that's great. So...
And naturally, come launch, solid shooting mechanics couldn't disguise the fact that Mass Effect Andromeda was about as essential to the canon as Han Solo shooting second was to Star Wars. When EA finally get around to doing Mass Effect 5, they need to address the complaints head on. It is really not hard to get us...
Notice how she said EA, not BioWare.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a slip of the tongue, I don't know.
Well, I suppose
Effect,
people are
yeah.
kind of synonymous EA with BioWare, but really there are a lot of the problems that BioWare have aren't really because of EA, like tendrils. Like EA is one of those kind of, if you're doing well, they'll leave you alone, but the more you start to fail, or the more that you start to fail in your projections, they'll just start cannibalizing more and more of you. It's kind of like a beast, really. You have to keep feeding it, or else it's going to turn on you.
Yeah, I know. It's the actual. If the content of the game was good, and all the bugs were still there, people would be much more forgiving because they'd be like, "Hey, they tried their best. They're not the best at hardware and software, but they're really good at storytelling." Then it'd be like, "Yeah, the same thing with Troika when they had a faulty engine with a bastardized version or a prepubescent version of the Source engine." Yeah, still one of the greater games of our time, Vampire Bloodlines. Still being played today, still having mods today. That would be forgiven. It's like, yeah, after you get past the glitches and install these 20 mods or whatever, it'll be great.
I think really though, one of the perspectives that I always try to view it from is look at the production values of this game. The reason why we can forgive Troika and Mass Effect 1, which was middle market BioWare, was because they were middle market studios. They didn't have these huge wavering budgets. Mass Effect Andromeda had a massive budget. And to me, that's just no excuse for that level of shoddy quality. It's just absolutely obscene, the fact that they had a $100 million budget. Admittedly, $40 million was spent on production, but the fact that they had that much money to be given and that's the best that they could do, is pretty worrying to me.
Yeah, so I could say that a game like Anthem is probably a lot more been imposed and influenced by EA as opposed to Mass Effect Andromeda. I think Andromeda was purely their baby, and in production, development, writing was all just a shoddy mess, and they had to do what they could. Whereas Anthem seems to be like, oh, we need to compete with looter shooters, because at the time that was the big thing. Nowadays it's battle royale, first person shooters or whatever, third person shooters, whatever. So it's like, oh, and then EA is like, just give some money to this company to make another one. It's like, okay.
Van's excited, so get to it. 9. Lose the Dragon Age Inquisition in space approach.
Sure.
That means the large open worlds upon where the large areas upon whereby you got nothing else to do, or everything's just kind of similar. You know, like find my ring. It's 10 meters to the right of your love. You know,
yeah, I mean, this could be good or bad. It all depends on how they do it. But if I were to compare it to like the Outer Worlds, they're saying no, this is not open world. This is not one big expanse. It's like, no, you have like 2 hubs or 2 levels. That's it. Maybe a few little missions here and there, but it's all just very linear. And that's all. That's all. The game's coming out this year. We just heard about it last year. Just do that. Make it simple as possible. So I would say, yes, this is a good idea in general, but it's not like a hard rule. You don't have to make a game that has big levels or big environments, but just make it simple. Make it a linear level. Have I'm not talking like was it Final Fantasy 12? 13
was just a T-square level of linearity,
right.
I think really though is I look back at, say, Mass Effect 1's approach, which was you had the large worlds, but they were optional. The problem with Andromeda was that you were forced into using the Nomad, whereas in Mass Effect 1 you were only forced to use the Mako in certain segments and in brief periods, and everything else was completely optional. That's a big difference in a kind of a player optional kind of thing,
Yeah, and it worked with, like, let's say the vertical slice of Vermeer, where you had the Mako and then you have to go on foot, then you have the Mako again, you had some cutscenes, some dialogue options. Like, that was a nice, good system to showcase. Or was it? I don't even know if that was the demo. I don't think so. I think they showcased the X05 demo. Was that?
They had one where they were 6 months before release and they were on Vermeer.
Okay. I've seen a few.
You had Casey and one of the founders playing the game.
But
yeah, the idea is that you break up the flow of gameplay, and the Mako wasn't overstaying its welcome. Whereas with the Nomad, you could understand why people were getting sick of it, because it was just all there. You were just driving around doing nothing for a long period of time. Same thing happened with Inquisition. You were just riding around doing the same thing, going, "Oh my god, I am bored out of my mind." Getting to the next waypoint,
And your horse goes exactly the same speed as you, maybe a slightly touch faster. You're like,
right?
Why?
Take my hand, Bioware, and say it with me. I cannot make an open world game. Good, good. We all know you tried, and we all see which parts of the competition you're trying to ape, but hundreds of fetch quests, completing basic, badly rendered puzzles, and following glowing objects around doesn't constitute entertainment, fun, or poignance. Bioware seem to have looked at the likes of Bethesda, Ubisoft, or perhaps Rockstar and thought to themselves, so that's all you do? More of everything. Only the end result in this case is a complete mishmash of time-wasting goals that don't feed into any sense of progression. We need a narrative thrust, a reason to care, and a set of locations that don't just look like you gave up halfway through and said, that will do.
Yeah, see, she's really getting to the point here, as opposed to just saying, don't make open world style or big levels. Give us a narrative reason for doing it. Like, you can have a narrative reason for having these big levels, but that's the point she's trying to make here. I don't think bigger levels are necessarily worse. It's just how you use them, and why am I exploring all this terrain? Why am I using the Mako or the Nomad? Why am I using these vehicles? Like, give us a good reason why we're playing this way. That's all you got to do, whether your level is big or small.
We need planets and play spaces as hyper-detailed as the franchise's lore codex. Nothing less will suffice. You've done it before, you've entertained us before, you can do it again. I believe in you. 8. Multiple playable alien races.
Yeah, I guess. Would be nice, but it's not perfect. It's not the best reason.
I mean, that to me would be, I think I said this to you ages ago. I don't think it was on a live stream, but if they were to set up, let's say, another trilogy, I wouldn't actually have it in terms of like a Mass Effect, how they, supposed trilogy, but I'd actually have it in terms of a generational trilogy, in terms of like you'd then play the son or daughter of your main character or a generation away or something like that. And if, let's say, you romanced an Asari, then in your next game, you would then play as an Asari or something like that.
That is interesting. That's a very interesting way of importing your save. It's like, what happened? Well, we had sex, and you are the third you had the third generation of a Quarian and a human. You're like, what? That doesn't make sense. How is it? Oh, in the future, like, yeah, you'd have to really.
Well, it doesn't have to be Quarian. I'm just saying that the plausible one,
right?
The plausible banking one, because obviously you don't want to, okay, you romance Turian. Okay, your DNA is completely incompatible. I don't know, I mean, can you imagine if shepherding, like, what would the child be for Garrus? You'd have an awkward, poorly dancing but expert sniper shot.
Dancing is genetic. I know who used to dance like that back in my day. It's like Rex, and he's looking at you. He's like, I know that ass anywhere. What? Whoa. Shepard, like, no.
But the idea of multiple playable races is only meaningful as if the races are actually going to mean anything, like in terms of the impact with other talking to other people. Like in Bloodlines, how like other people would respond to you differently. Like if you were Malkavian, people would just kind of go, "What?"
Yeah, that was a whole. When you choose your class, that was a whole thing. It wasn't just abilities; it was storytelling and how people reacted to you. The same, I wouldn't even say the same. And Dragon Age Origins was even limited with it's like, oh, you are an elf from the city. It's like, yes. It's like, oh, we never were expecting you. It's like, that's it. That's the line of dialogue. Or you are an elf, and they don't care whether you're from the forest or the city. So it's like, oh, okay. It doesn't really add to the experience unless you're doing something big, like with the case of Bloodlines, where the whole game is different if you go Nosferatu or if you go Malkavian, as you said. So yeah, I mean, it's nice, but you're just going to have a different character model. You're going to have a voice modulator for Quarians and Turians.
It's just more work for the voice actors to do, because just like with Dragon Age, which they had 2 male and 2 female, and then of course they have to do every single line in response. That's just more work for Bioware. So from a practical standpoint, I'd be like, no, just have 2, just male and female, done.
Yeah, that would keep it simple. Like we're focusing on things that would make this thing perfect, right? Like the exact answer. And yes, this having a Turian, having a Asari, playing as one would be great. I'm not denying that, but it's not the definitive answer. So I can't agree with this.
For the longest time, the assumption behind playing as a customizable human was to ground all real-world colours and creeds behind the notion of defending humanity as one, proving humans as a species could hang with the other intergalactic heavyweights in the Alliance. However, an even stronger message of solidarity would surely be letting us become embroiled in various other alien cultures, drawing comparisons and creating talking points that mirror life on Earth. Showing the whole galaxy's races all go through similar squabbles would be one hell of a message, and Bioware already handled this expertly with their portrayal of Quarian citizenship mimicking various secluded religious views. But it is only the tip of the iceberg. Mainly, like in the Elder Scrolls games, we just want to play as other races.
Yeah, but there was no real value to playing as other races in Skyrim, as far as I remember. You might have some specific skills based off being one of those races, but it was like it didn't affect the story at all. You were still the Dragonborn. So what's the
I'm
point?
a Krogan. I can headbutt now.
Yeah, your melee is a headbutt. It's like, okay. I mean, they could make DLC and do a side story with another character. They can make multiplayer where you can play as multiple species. It's not a hard thing to do, but to create a tight story, you need to have a specific character, and that usually is based off specific background stories. So unless you want to have like Shepard 3.0 with, you know, it could have been an Asari, it could have been a this, he could have been a part of a gang, it could have been part of the military. It's like, oh, and then you have to say, what's the military for a Turian? What's a gang for a Turian? What's the gang for Quarian? And then you have to keep going. It's like it's all this work just to have a character that you could just put into one type. And again, it doesn't have to be human. You could just make one character who's Asari. Give us a Mass Effect where you play as an Asari. Why not? That would be fine.
NPCs react, see what abilities were granted, and ultimately flesh out that notion of escapism through video games even more. Quarians, Turians, Krogan, even a newly minted Geth discovering what life even is and feels like, all of these would be phenomenal additions to the canon, providing a unique way to approach Mass Effect going forward. 7. Separate multiplayer and single player into standalone releases.
Yeah. It's not a big deal.
Sure.
I don't think there's a problem with that. I think if you make a free-to-play multiplayer, I think that'd be a great way to get someone in the door for the single player, and all they would have to do is have like an import option so that if there's a continuation, let's say your multiplayer impacts the single player, why not? I think that's actually, they should have done that with Mass Effect 3, where they released the demo and they say, hey, this is a standalone game, but you could also connect it with your single player game, and it would just launch the game. If you were in Mass Effect 3, it would launch the game into the first game, or the single player game if you were in the multiplayer game. Why not? Basic stuff.
Let's just be honest. Gamers invested in Mass Effect as a story couldn't give two hoots about the multiplayer. Yes, they'll play it for a handful of matches, but it is not the driving force whatsoever. Conversely, those who really adore the multiplayer, and they do exist, hence Mass Effect 3's player base staying strong to this day, aren't replaying the stories over and over either. So, please everybody, separate the two chunks of the game into completely different releases. Let the multiplayer portion of Bioware, the guys that took over the project in Andromeda's case, have their own standalone release, and flesh that portion of the game's mechanics out in a way that benefits online competition. You can even make it free to play, falling back on microtransactions to sustain...
Fun fact, actually, Montreal were actually working on a standalone multiplayer Mass Effect, but they got cobbled it. But because Mass Effect 3 was going to be released so soon, they got bundled it in together because it was another selling point.
Oh, really? Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah. There's actually screenshots that you can. It was going to be a first-person shooter, as well, and then they got told to scrap it and make use the assets from Mass Effect 3 to make the multiplayer.
It makes sense. I mean, this is a good idea. I don't think this is like the best way to save the franchise, but it's a good way, and it focuses your efforts and stability and scope of the single player option when you're not worried about integrating multiplayer in balance. What would be really great though is the teams communicate, say, hey, you know what, we balance multiplayer so well, here's what we've discovered, here's the actual stats and values, level progression, whatever. You can look at that and have that tweak the single player game. I think that would be a good, because obviously if you're going to release multiplayer, you're going to do alphas and betas, live tests, test your servers, stress tests, that sort of thing. And you can use that data to improve gameplay. So you could focus more on story on the single player and then say, hey, here's all our data that balances everything out. Just copy and paste, put that into level progression, put that into stat progression. Obviously, there's going to be differences between characters and classes, but tweak it, fine. But that would save a lot of time. So you have two teams, one on gameplay purely for multiplayer, one on game and story just for single player. I think that's a good idea. Not the perfect one, but it makes a lot of sense.
For the sake of satisfying those single-player gamers who would complain a mode was being removed entirely. Said narrative lovers, though, they would get a dedicated single-player Mass Effect with no distractions. Everybody wins! 6. Redesign the conversation system.
Oh boy, again, let's redo the dialogue wheel a fifth time.
Dialogue pentagram.
The first game was good. It didn't have they didn't have the time to make the interrupt system. The second game had the interrupt system, still using Paragon and Renegade. The third game had both, but with auto dialogue, because they had that stupid story mode and whatever the other modes were, so that people who just wanted to shoot... Yeah, that was really dumb. I don't know why they did that. So they simplified the game even further, which is what you don't do in these games. Again, the focus of these games is the conversation or dialogue system. It's always going to be that. The same with Alpha Protocol, the same with The Witcher. It's always about the dialogue. So there's nothing wrong with redesigning it, but you have to be very careful. You have to keep what everyone wants and then add to it. And you have to have a good narrative reason for that. For the narrative reason for Shepard was that he was Paragon or Renegade. And that was it. Fine. What's the new gimmick this time? Is he going to be like a liar? Is there like a lying technique? Is it like degrees of lying? How enthusiastic you are? Is there like a charge meter where you charge up your R trigger and let it go, and you scream really loud, or you just scream normally, or you just shrug your shoulders?
Mass Effect 1 actually had, in some cases, 5 dialogue options. You had the red and blue, but then you had the more diplomatic, neutral, and then the more off-putting one.
Right.
So in some cases, actually they had 5. It's just the blue and red one were just the resolve the situation overall kind of thing, because you've put more points. Whereas in Mass Effect 2, on the other hand, they simplified it even more, where they went from 5 to 3, and then Mass Effect 3 went into 2 options, which is really bizarre when Mark Dara went, we've simplified it even more. It's like, how would you get more simple than 2 dialogue options? It's just going to be 1.
Yeah, the only detriment I see is that because of the design of the game, you had to keep getting more red or blue points in order to do the final dialogue option. So what they have to do, instead of it making like a necessity to open up those options, just making it a style that people can believe in and have the checks fail when they fail, because that's people don't like to fail, and that's what I don't understand in some of these games, especially with all these new isometric Baldur's Gate style games like Pathfinder that I'm currently playing. Is they tell you the check. It's like, don't tell me the check. I just want to do what I want to do. I want the 10 dialogue options that I get in Baldur's Gate, and I just want to. That's the one I want. I don't care if I fail it. I'm not there to be like the perfect gamer. I want that sort of chaotic feeling to things. I want to be able to roll the dice sometimes, even though I'm like the best. Like I build a character to be a dialogue heavy character. I don't mind failing. It does piss me off if I do fail, and I shouldn't, but that's because I know there's a check. And if they show me the check, like they show you the check in Pathfinder Kingmaker, but there's a degree of variability there. So say if my Intimidate score is at 30, but I need a 33, I can still win it because the dice rolls. But I could also still lose it if my rating is higher. So there's a certain level of variability, and that's what I like. You want to have things be not perfect. And if you didn't like it, you know what? Roll the dice again. Reload your save. It's not a big deal. So you want dialogue options that are custom tailored to your style of play. And they should not be binary.
Yeah, it's always difficult, because one of the problems I actually had with Mass Effect overall was just that it made things a bit too simple. Like, you could talk to anyone and you could resolve any situation for either being Paragon or Renegade. The problem that I had with it was that can every character be diplomatized? I mean, word it. Can they be convinced otherwise? Can they be intimidated? It's like, can Shepard intimidate a Krogan? Probably not. Therefore, intimidation wouldn't work on a Krogan, or a Krogan type, or an evil warlord or someone like that. So you need to have a system that kind of goes, if let's say you're spec'd one way, you will be good in these situations, but in these situations you won't be as good.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's kind of resolved the idea of, oh, right, I can't use diplomacy in every single situation. Someone is going to go, no, not going to listen to you. you know. But
Yeah.
if you're a renegade, they'll be like, oh, whoa, back off, you know.
Yeah, in the same regard to that, like the general mentality is Krogan's like strength. If you're not being strong with them, they're gonna trample you or they're gonna listen to you. So you'll probably have to be even stronger. You can't intimidate them, but you have to be at their level. You're like, hey, I respect you, but I'm not gonna back down. Like, okay, I get you. So it'd be like a middle of the road sort of option as opposed to being just nice and friendly. They're gonna look at you like, who's this? You know, this is a joke. This guy's nothing. Whereas if you're being aggressive, they're like, now we know you're a joke. So, yeah, stuff like that. Those are good questions to ask when you're talking to scenarios. You have to think of how to answer questions. That's what we want to see.
There's also Inquisition actually did a few little bits where if you did little side quests, they could actually influence your story a little bit, like conversation. You know, they had a little special dialogue. It's like you need something like that. You know, for example, you want to convince a Krogan, but words can only go so far. So you go and do a mission whereby you basically bring back a Fresher Moore's head and you just slam it down on the table. And it's like, right, you people are going to listen to me because you're still covered in the gore and viscera.
Yeah, I mean the dialogue system. I still say Alpha Protocol has the best because you have variation, and the way that Casey Hudson described, if you remember that interview with the Vermeer demo, was it E3 or whatever, with that other guy and the guy from one of the CEOs, he was saying the dialogue wheel was designed because you think in terms of in your head what you're going to say, but it comes out different, or it comes out in a very specific way as opposed to what you thought. And it's like, okay, fine, I could understand what he's saying. And that sort of what ended up happening with all Bioware games and other companies that saw that's the mentality. Whereas people wanted, no, I think something, I want to say exactly what I think, and that's an argument to have, but we just want to see the variations and allow us to make choices that we want to make. It's really that basic. So, do they need to redesign it? I think they need to refine it, and they have to make it more diverse, not go from the ground up again and say, okay, let's make Paragon Renegade and swarmy scavenger dude. He's like, whoa.
Well, it's all be sarcastic. I think Deus Ex, Human Revolution, Mankind Divided system is a far superior one because it's an emotional reaction based upon given the situation. There isn't a Paragon, there isn't a Renegade. You're going to be Paragon and Renegade all the time. Your emotional state is going to be different to every single conversation based upon each person. So something like that, I think, that's just me personally speaking, because I just like Deus Ex. I just like the Deus Ex games, really.
That conversation, those were called conversation battles. Like, those were whole events. So
you could have those in, like, you could just have like the regular conversations where you could be apathetic and things like, you know, and then of course then you have the conversation battles, which would result in a myriad of different results.
Yeah, those are very well, those are well beyond the scope of what Bioware does with their conversations, for sure. Those are, you're talking about branching path narratives. You're talking about using your upgrades. There's all sorts of things you can do in those dialogues. They're still good. If even the first Deus Ex Human Revolution has all kinds of great dialogue. If you replay it, you'll see things you never saw before because of how the conversation goes. That would be like Bioware's like paying attention and saying, hey, we could really
Bioware's paying attention.
Yeah, we could really do better than the rest of the, because Bioware created this mechanic. They should know how to make it better. And redesigning is not so much as refine. So you have the elements, make it more robust, focus on what works, give us the options we want, and make as many interesting dialogue choices that relate to narrative as possible within scope. You can't like, okay, I'm going to blow up this planet or not, or I'm going to save this species or not. The way it worked in Mass Effect, the first game, was fine, totally fine. Add more to it, fine. Refine it, get it bigger, better, whatever. Redesigning, not really. You don't have to go that far.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Paragon and Renegade system was not all that flawed. Yes, there were some obvious binary outcomes to many in-game events, but that allowed Bioware to track said events across multiple games. After all, is X still alive is a much easier question to answer than were you kind, angry, dismissive or sarcastic, and how did that make them feel? To that end, Andromeda's overhauled conversation system was supposed to give the player a more emotion-based set of responses to characters and scenarios. Ultimately,
But they didn't want to do the work and actually figure out branching paths and character stances like Alpha Protocol did. Nope, they just randomly had 4 options that meant the same thing, but were told in a different way. It's like, nah, that doesn't work. This is really what choices are all about here. Branching paths in even one dialogue is what we're looking for in Bioware games, not all this gameplay and not all these characters. We want just this. Make this work, and the story will follow. It's that simple.
Yeah, but the thing about Andromeda is just that's a very bad example because most of the choices were binary anyway. You very rarely actually had 4 choices given to you.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like unlike the demo that they showed off, which was orange. I think it was like a kind of orange or almondy color, which then they changed for whatever reason. And then they went, oh yeah, there's 4 options there, but in the actual conversation you only had 2. So they just kept on stripping things down. So yeah, it's really bizarre.
And compare that to Alpha Protocol, where it doesn't really matter exactly what you say. It matters how you say it to certain characters. And they will respect that or like that or respond to that more than another way of talking, which is pretty interesting. I don't know if that's accurate to life or what you think. But it made for some very entertaining scenes of how to talk to, let's say, Z. You were constantly just not giving a shit the entire time. And she loved it. She was like, oh my God, you're so... It's like, oh, why is this crazy mercenary interested in me? I just want to go away from her. Like that. It was just this funny feedback that you were getting. And because it was the spy genre of stories, you could get behind, like, oh yeah, okay, there's the Bourne, there's the Bond, and who was the other one? The Goofy, the other Bond. I couldn't remember all the stances you had, but they had the suave, the serious, and the Bourne, Jason Bourne's character. So they had the range of movie-esque spy thrillers in their conversation, which I thought was brilliant. And I still think it's one of the best ones out there. So, yeah.
I think that's actually something that they never really established, or because Mass Effect 2 threw out basically Mass Effect 1 the moment that Shepard died. We never actually understood what a Spectre or what it meant to be a Spectre. Like the first game, it's like, okay, we're a test bed, we're just going to be hunting Siren, nice and focused, right? But Mass Effect 2 never expanded upon the Spectres or what they do, how they do things, or is there a SOP, standard operation procedures for them and things like that. We never get invited into those kind of meetings.
Yeah.
On let's say like Jedi or like you say with the Alpha Protocol spy, like we kind of get the impressions of what kind of spies are.
Imagine if the plot or the premise for Mass Effect 2 was Lair the Shadow Broker, and you have to get involved with Spectres, and information is a big deal, and then you appoint Liara as the Shadow Broker, because the whole point of the game should have been to get information on the Reapers. That should have been it. Who are these guys? How do we stop them? When are they coming? How are they coming? Well, we need some information. How do we do that? We have to go get some serious information. Let's go to the main dude. Okay, we got Cerberus. They're good, but we don't trust them. There's the Shadow Broker. They're great. Let's actually get those. And you go on these missions for information. You go to STG, go on a mission. You figure out, you infiltrate STG, you bust some skulls, you say, hey, I need to know what's going on. The galaxy's at stake. I'm a Spectre, blah, blah, blah. That would have been so much more focused on Shepard as a character, Shepard as a role. What is he willing to do? What are you going to do in relation to that? Are you going to put your pawns and you're going to upgrade them to queens? What's going to happen? That would have been way more interesting than generic bug species that captures humans in some weird, what is that 1940s or 50s serial Pulp Fiction about body snatchers. It's just like, yeah, not really, guys. Come on, you can do better than that.
Yeah, they could have actually designed the game around, like I could say, it's the idea of Mass Effect 3, Mass Effect 2 is acquiring information. How do you want to acquire that information? Right, you can go in there like SEAL Team 6, you can go in there like James Bond, or you can use diplomacy to get. How do you want to proceed?
Yes. Beautiful. Very similar to Nosferatu. Once you play Nosferatu in Vampire the Masquerade, the whole game is different. You're constantly in the shadows. You're going through the sewers. That would be great. Whereas in that kind of game, yeah, do you just talk your way out of it because that's the class you chose and that's what you're good at? That fails, boom, go into spy mode. Boom, that doesn't work, guns blazing. Like you have these stages of how to solve a problem. Yeah, I like that. Damn it, why can't we just pitch these games to yourself?
But all we have is a dream, and we need $100 million to make that dream. We're only one thing away from achieving it.
100 million things, but yeah, that's true.
Though it resulted in 5 variations on the exact same sentiment, unless you explicitly declined to do something. And even then, depending on what it was, you'd still get a prompt in your quest log. Basically, this is a if it ain't broke, don't fix it scenario. Look into the likes of The Witcher 3, where the ultimate ending you're given is predicted on a number of specific interactions you had with Ciri over the whole game. That was how to do an ending that encapsulated a number of human dialogue options, resulting in something all who finished will always remember. 5. No more You're the Chosen One narrative.
It's not that important.
That was more Mass Effect 2 and 3, really, wasn't it? Mass Effect 1 was we can only send you because you're basically the only other option rather than sending an entire fleet.
Right. It starts off that's like, how about Shepard? You're like, okay, yeah, I may as well send Shepard.
Shepard's like in the corner eating a donut, like, what? What's going on? I'm being a what now?
Yeah, it was a political choice. It wasn't, you have the cipher in your head. It's like, no, they didn't care what the hell happened. They didn't even believe what happened to you. You're like, yeah, you did what now? Yeah, okay, buddy, whatever. Yeah, we're choosing you because you're breathing, and we have no one else. So off you go.
Yeah.
You have boots. You fit into the boots, and you're not dead yet. So we're going to use you. That's all you were. That's all it was. And then in Mass Effect 2, oh, you're the first Inspector. You got hit by the thing with the Protheans. You're like, yeah, what? What does that have to do with anything? You're a thimble. It's like, what? Does that mean anything to anyone? Like we had no scope of what it meant to be Shepard until we got to the third game, and even that was like, they look up to you. It's like, really? I'm just like them. Yeah, but they mean something to you. You mean something to them. It's like, okay, what is that? You're a symbol. It's like, oh, here we go.
You're a symbol. Why is that? Because you're the one selling all the merchandise.
Like they made a joke about it in the second game, where it's like, oh, it's Commander Shepard. Wow, could I get your autograph? It's like, could you give me a discount? It's like, yeah, for sure. Just like promote my store. And that was it. That was a joke. It was a big silly thing about being a symbol to the universe or the galaxy. It's like, and then the whole AI, the whole 3D model of you, and it's like, okay, I guess, but it never, like, you never saw the crowds. Like this is in my various rewrites and even my Mass Effect 2 fixing video, I was talking about a cult of Shepard, a bunch of people who see Shepard as like this prophet who's going to, like, he's telling you what's coming, the herald of destruction, he's telling you what's going to happen to the galaxy. And people start believing, like, holy crap, this is real. This is not a joke. And then you see all these people following you, and you have to make choices around them. And it can be played off like Life of Brian. It can be played off like all serious, but at least that you'd have that element of people who are informed and going, holy crap, what do I do? And all we had to personify that was Conrad Werner. And even that was played off as a joke. So it had to it wasn't really a major narrative thing, and it should have been. It should have been a big thing. If someone discovers if you discover that the world's going to end in 10 years, and you have like concrete proof, it's like, oh, that's a big deal. So, we have to. There should have been more of that. There should have been Liara, like broadcasting things about the end of the world because she's a researcher, and all the Asari researchers of the Protheans like laughing at her publications, and there's this big discussion on the news, and we see these people sort of being interviewed, kind of like how we had that Mass Effect 3 commercial where there's that professor, and he's like, oh, I wouldn't put too much stock into believing in these ancient aliens are come living in dark space are going to come and kill us. It's like that, yeah, stuff like that. You want a lot of that, just constant over pushing the narrative that there's a big thing coming, and it seems as if the rest of the galaxy doesn't give a shit, which is strange, especially since that's the whole point of Mass Effect 3. So,
yeah, it reminds me of Starship Troopers, the one where they're having the discussion about the bug, the two professors.
Oh.
It's like the whole, like, one person thinks that there's a smart bug that no one's ever seen before, and everyone's like, oh, they just know they're unintelligible kind of thing. You just need that kind of dynamic. Like, maybe there is something we can understand about them,
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a sticking point in Bioware games, but it's not so much you're the chosen one, you're just the best one for the job. And
was it Baldur's Gate that you were? Was it one of the son of Baal or something like that? The son of a pretty much an evil god,
right? And your mortal soul was about to be destroyed or taken over or what have you. Again, that's a problem. That's an internal problem. It's not necessarily. Others are like, oh yeah, we got to solve this issue, and then in the second game they just play with that. Say, okay, what happens if we get rid of that? What's going to happen to you? And then you find out, you're like, oh, yeah, I got to fix this right now. So, yeah, I don't really see. Only in the third game can I showcase some of it, but by then it's too late. By then it's like, oh yeah, we should have listened to you. Like, he's just the guy to tell you what's going to happen. He has no special ability. His uniqueness is pointless. So.
No one gave two craps about Shepard coming back from the dead. Oh, hey Shepard, how you doing? Yeah, that was a major tax evasion that you got there.
Yeah, even Miranda's like, yeah, whatever, you're back. It's like, okay. Just spent 2 years of my life. Was it 3 years?
2 years.
2 years. I just reversed death. Yeah.
It's of Control C, Control V, on the old DNA sequencing, it's all gravy.
I didn't know we made clones. I heard about it. It's like, you're the fucking project director. How could you not know they made clones of Shepard, you idiot?
I love the way, was it Mass Effect 3 when they were like, how do we know Shepard was how Shepard was built? It's like, you can always ask Miranda, the project director of Project Lazarus. Oh my flipping hell. Oh my, like, where's the elusive man again? Miranda, there, opening them. Do you people play your own games? Are you aware of continuity or what it means?
Yeah, it's just, yeah, well, I would say it's not completely incorrect, but it doesn't really mean anything. Imagine if there was a prophecy, and then it would be like, oh, you are the one to do this thing. It's like, you can work with that. You can actually make a good story out of that. It could be a subversion of the prophecy. It could be a not very big deal. One of the stories I'm writing, I'm actually playing with a subversion of what's supposed to be coming, and then it ends up just being no big deal. So, these things can be done. It's a simple storytelling device or a premise, and it doesn't hurt anything. It doesn't break anything, I don't think. So
I'm trying to think of something that could be done in the Mass Effect world, like with the Prothean invasions, what have you. But imagine, let's say, something gets downloaded into your head, but it kind of knows that you can't go around prophesizing the doom of everyone. But it's like, right, I'm going to help guide you, and to try and make these people believe or prepare for the upcoming conflict or something like that. So you're going to be like just your intelligence is going to seem above average than the people. Like, you're not going to be seen as like a prophet or anything like that, even though you're pretty amazing. You know, there you go.
That seems like a good choice-based story to make, and all those choices determine the end result of the prophecy.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think of in Farscape when Crichton had they called it Harvey in his. I actually helped him out every now and then.
Right.
You know, you need something like that. That's kind of, you know, to play off by yourself rather than, because it kind of allows your character to bounce off of something internally rather than always relying on external people for your reactions.
Yeah, and I like the idea of not knowing what the prophecy means. I think that was a Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode where all the three vipers of the doorway to heaven or whatever that would come out of the wormhole, like no one knew what that meant, and they thought it was the Cardassians. They thought it was the ships. They thought they could, like, that's a good, interesting mystery. So to have a prophecy, to have an idea of what's going to happen, I think that could be told well, and it's not an issue that it has to be removed. So
empowerment and escapism don't always go hand in hand, but they do in BioWare's games. From Dragon Age to Andromeda, BioWare have fallen back on giving your character some sort of activation power that, especially in Andromeda, helps the protagonist make up for thousands of years of progress in seconds.
you mean Sam? Is that what she means?
Yeah, I think it's because what they mean is that you are the chosen one. Why are you? Because you have control of the controller. You press X to forward plot. That's your chosen one right there.
Yeah, no, I think she means Sam in relation to Andromeda, because there's really nothing special about Ryder aside from being the son or daughter of Alec. That's about it. So that's not really a chosen one. It's just that he happens to have this illegal tech that gets downloaded into you. So
whether it's a magical incantation or a super intelligent AI implant, the story of Andromeda far too often fell back onto this monolith wasn't working till you came along.
Well, that's not because of you, it's because of Sam. So the chosen one is actually Sam, not you. So that could be an interesting story. You're just, again, the same way Anthem is not about the player character, it's about the other characters. From what I can see from the cutscenes, that could be an interesting story. It's how it's done. It doesn't so much matter as what trope you're using, what premise you're using. It's how it's told, it's how it's used. That's all.
Thank you, handsome stranger. And this translates into the wider structure of the world itself. You can tell BioWare are fans of this style of "you're the literal center of the universe" narrative. But
no, they're not.
No. Like, the Warden wasn't the central of the whole of Thedas. He was just
the last surviving one, along with Alistair. That was it.
Yeah, and a lot of people didn't believe. It was just like, we just need to get this Warden to fight the Archdemon. That's all. You know. In fact, most people actually fell behind Alistair rather than yourself.
Yeah, and Alistair wasn't much of a leader, so it came to you to unite everyone else because you were the only one that knew it was coming. The same with Shepard was like, hey, I know it's coming, but no one believed you, and they still didn't. Until they actually came. So it's like, oh, what's there's really no value to being a chosen one then.
It's like with was it Inquisition? That was a definite kind of forced chosen one because there was no reason for you to become the chosen one. It was just you were the one that plopped out of a Fade Rift one day, and then they kind of made you. Which would, like, I think you said that in one of your things, like the whole idea of faith was never explored in that game. It was just kind of meh. Like, no one knows anything. You can't even dissuade the idea of, like, there's no option to become full atheist or a theist in that sense. You know, it's not like you can embrace Androste or anything like that.
Yeah, if they want to play with it, we haven't seen a proper expression of what it means to be the chosen one. Even in KOTOR, I mean, that was a reveal. You had no idea. You were just some really powerful dude. I don't get it. I think maybe they're just taking an easy way out of explaining that you're really good at something. I think Inquisition is as close as it gets, because you had the one magical skill to close rifts and and everyone's kind of saw you as the icon, but it didn't actually mean anything. You didn't actually have much influence aside from I can close rifts. And everyone else,
there was that one scene in the Hinterlands where it's like, oh, what, we follow you now, and it's like, do this for me, and nothing else. That's it, you know. Later.
With so many games in, it would be a welcome change of pace to focus on somebody else entirely. There is a ton of plot potential in analysing the aftermath of any given hero's actions.
Plot potential. Analyzing the aftermath. What the hell is she talking about? How is there plot potential after the fact? The story's over. I have no idea what she's talking about.
The Marvel Cinematic Universe is finding. Yet in a Bioware RPG, you save the galaxy, activate every console, solve every racial dispute, etc. just by standing
I wouldn't call the ending of Mass Effect 3 saving the galaxy. In the original one, you blew everything up. The catalyst said that all the mass relays will be destroyed.
I think the ending to the game is the greatest subversion to any argument about any storytelling device for Mass Effect. It's like, well, if it wasn't Shepard, it could have been a lowly grunt. It's like, well, Shepard was a grunt, and what ended up happening was he ended up blowing up the galaxy. So didn't really matter if you were a grunt or the chosen one.
4. Don't outsource the facial animations.
No, they didn't actually outsource facial animations. They hired a facial Egyptian one and a few other ones. They just couldn't get it to work in the Frostbite engine.
That's about it, yeah.
Yeah, they had to use. They basically this is where the infamous cosplayer kind of came into it all, because she was only signed up in 2016 under one of EA Vancouver as lot, and she was the one that they were the small team that did that. I'm not sure how much work they actually did, but then Bioware reverted back to the auto lip sync one. I forgot what the program that they used, but it was some like really auto, like, you know, mouthy wordy thing. So.
Right. Plugin for either Studio Max or Frostbite or whatever rendering engine they were using for face animation.
It's probably the same one that they used for Inquisition, actually, because I noticed a lot of similarities in Inquisition and Andromeda.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure the rigs were different, but this is not a big deal.
Do you want a reason why Andromeda's launch day facial animations looked so hilariously terrible? It came down to EA literally and actively telling BioWare's coders that facial animation was not a priority.
No.
You don't tell coders, you tell your anime.
I don't think EA says, hey, I want you to use this plugin. It's like, no, they did not. I can guarantee they did not do that. I've never seen a producer or a manager or anyone that's not a technical guy say we have to use this plugin, because I've seen developers say we have to use this tool because, and they say we have a contract, or they say we've been using it so far, we don't want to spend money, we don't want to take the extra time to learn something, but there's really no technical response from up high, especially EA, telling developers to do their outs. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, why would they bother doing that?
Wasn't that also one of the things in the Dration Schreier report where the developers of Bioware were literally still arguing over using 3ds Max or Maya, and they kept on switching back and forth, which meant that work was being lost. They couldn't continue on. That's just like, you are shipping out in months to go, and you are still arguing over what basic software you are using to develop this game. You people are insane. Yeah,
this is not an EA issue. This is purely a developmental problem. Whether they used one studio or the other, whether they used one plugin or another, or a rendering engine, or a modeling program, it's just like, this is not an issue. Okay, just say they have to figure out how to make games. Okay, not a specific aspect. You know, just in general, get the pipeline going. We don't care whether you're using ZBrush or whether you're using Maya, we do not care. This is not a problem. Hire the right people. They obviously know what they're doing. Get her done. That's it. This is not about development.
This practice apparently wasn't due to money, it was simply a case of EA telling those involved that things such as gunplay and vehicles were more important than how characters converse with one another.
No, again, they did not design the game. They did not tell BioWare what to design. That's not how this works. That's not how Anthem worked. Maybe there was like a change of the guard when Casey left, and they said, okay, why aren't you guys making a whatever game? And they're like, oh, we can do that. Maybe for Anthem, but not for Andromeda. No way.
On another. Liam Robertson mentions that BioWare staff actively went out of their way to offer their services to do additional work on the human character assets. And
yeah, that was after the fact. That was when the game was shipping or whatever the case was, and they were getting bug reports, and they were like, I remember that 2 months of just constant patches. You know, the 11th patch, the 12th patch.
Oh, yeah.
We're willing to work on the game. It's like, you better be.
All right.
It's a broken product. You have to fix it. Yeah. And they eventually did. So, but that has nothing to do with EA. It's like, we missed our deadline. We did what we could. Oh, you want to extend our contract? Okay. Of course, if you're paying the guy, yeah, we'll work harder, no problem. Time and a half, yeah, pay us more. We're happy to do that. Whoop-de-doo.
were turned away. Going forward, the solution is simple. Develop your technology in-house with a dedicated team that understand your engine from top to bottom. BioWare's engines have been shaky when it comes to conversations at the best of times. But Mass Effect 5 is going to need some LA Noire levels of realistic facial movements.
No, it doesn't. Come on. You don't have to... This is kind of contradictory to what she just said, because LA Noire used cutting-edge new techniques that no one's ever done before. And
it made them bankrupt, actually.
Exactly, yeah, they blew the budget. And she just says, do in-game technology you all know. It's like, yeah, don't rewrite, don't reinvent the wheel. So why would you then want to reinvent the wheel to make it look really good? This is the problem I don't get. The game can come out with bugs. It's not the problem. The problem is the game any good? Is the story any good? Is the dialogue any good? That's the main issues with these games.
Yeah, sorry, you go ahead, mate.
Yeah, I was these procedural issues of how you accomplish your project. Who cares? I can't tell BioWare what to do. It's like, hey, you know what, guys? I really know 3D Studio Max, and everyone should learn that. Therefore, use that. It's like, no. Do what you think works. Stick with it. Prove it. Do demo for a year. Make sure your prototype is solid, and go from there. That's it.
I think a problem is just that BioWare feels like they need to compete in markets that they don't even belong into. A long distance runner versus a 100-meter sprinter, it just isn't going to work. They are two different bodies built for two different things. And BioWare still thinks that they need to compete with the likes of, say, how Uncharted does things. And it's like, no, they shouldn't be doing that. So that's why they kind of, like in Mass Effect 3 when they had that gun carter scene, that was probably mocapped, and that probably took up a lot of time and money just to do those scenes.
They started doing slow-mo scenes. You're like, okay, we don't really need this. I mean, trying to be more cinematic, I guess, but it was like, you don't have to add these elements. The elements were working fine in 2. You added the thing that should have been in 1, which were the interrupts. That's it. You don't need anything more. You're fine.
Well, I was actually going to sort of say that BioWare has this habit of reusing assets, which is fine, but they should be building upon those assets. But they just don't. Like Mass Effect 3, that this is their third time using the Unreal 3 engine. They should know that engine in and out by then. And for some reason, they were still going, we don't know how to do levels. It's like, what?
Well,
what?
I'm glad they did Melee better. I do know they talked about the various problems with the Mass Effect 2 levels for, let's say, getting caught whenever you Vanguard charge. That was a big thing that a lot of players noticed. So they fixed that in the third game, and especially they figured it out when you have a multiplayer, everyone's Vanguard charging all over the goddamn map, and you still get trapped here and there, but obviously nowhere near as much as you did in the second game. So it was a learning experience. They fixed it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time, BioWare.
It's like the Vanguard charge could have just been a jetpack jump slam down ability. Like, that's been done in games like before Mass Effect 2. They didn't have to do that whole you're phasing through solid matter, which breaks the law.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Even KOTOR 1 had a Vanguard charge-like ability, where you just jump at the guy. You know how you saw in Episode 1 of Star Wars, where Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan jump really far, really quickly. That thing, like, that's essentially what you do in KOTOR if you're a combat-focused guy. So there are all kinds of story-based ways to explain that, but again, you don't have to literally warp through matter and do all this stuff and get caught in a box. And there's definitely easy code ways to fix that. If you do have any moments where player input does not change your position. So yeah, this is a very, very weird argument she's making here.
Just to leave all of those Andromeda memes in the dust. 3. Give us a compelling villain or narrative setup.
This is like point 1. This is the only point you need, actually. All the stuff she said before is okay to pointless. This is it. This is number 1. Write better stories. Done.
Saren and the Elusive Man. Both brilliantly duplicitous, interesting villains with depth, nuance, and above all, memorability.
Yeah, and then you screwed them up in the third game.
In Andromeda, we got the Archon instead, a cookie-cutter, Marvel or modern Star Trek-style villain. One note, one MO, which is kill everything, and nothing to write home about after the fact. The Archon exists only as a slightly more verbose target.
You know, it'd be really good is if the Reapers actually had like a Wei Yun type character.
Yep, Wei Yun was cool.
Be perfect. Yeah, I mean, that's mostly because of is it Jeffrey Combs who played him.
Right. Well, I think if you look to popular science fiction, especially hard science fiction, you can be greatly inspired by the villains there, by the heroes there, especially DS9. I mean, that was just ripe with great characterization and scenarios for those characters to interact with. The Kai, she was fantastic. Dukat was the best. I mean, those.
Before he went crazy.
Sorry? Before
he went crazy and turned himself into a Bajoran.
Although that's like the last season, so things were getting really weird.
Yeah, I know.
But that's the last few seasons of DS9 really got really good. So it's kind of like with Babylon 5. It starts really slow and then just builds up. DS9 at least had lots of themes and characters to keep it going until the plot kicked up, and that was a chosen one story. That they had the Cisco, blah blah blah. It got really annoying the first few seasons until it actually started meaning something at the last half. So there's a great example of how things can be bad and get better. So all about this point that she's going to illustrate, that it's all about writing, and we can forgive most of things if the writing is hooking us in.
Up and put down as soon as possible. For Mass Effect 5, we need a scenario that immediately sparks player interest. That came from these mysterious and driven villains in games past, yet in Andromeda, the entire driving force to proceed was you want to explore, the evil being is that way. What about navigating a scenario similar to the First Contact Wars, or something that mimics another genophage and the considerations that go into it?
Yeah, she's mixing ideas. She should be talking about a premise, and she's saying base the premise off the villain. It's like, okay, you could, but just make the premise compelling. That's it. Just start a sentence off that's either shocking, poetic, or dramatic. Do something to catch our interest. That's it. And then just describe the scene, make it gameplay, make it dialogue, Done. That's it. Make it make sense. However you want to do it. Emotionally, logically, space opera, whatever. Do that. And you have our attention. That's it.
As we're seeing in the real world, mutually assured destruction and nuclear power are nightly news topics. So why not take those concepts...
that bit where Kyle Lang was on the car. I was just like, Liara, put the brake on the car, and Kyle Lang will just go, woo! You'll fly off. That bit annoyed me so much.
Why not do a barrel roll? Why not,
Yeah.
fly at a 90-degree angle? Do anything. Like, there's so many things you could do. Shoot the windshield. Okay.
Yeah, pop the hatch so it like flies off and smacks him in the face. He just goes, ah! Like Wilhelm scream and everything.
He is on the roof of a flying car. Use any force of gravity and centrifugal force to do something. Just go for it.
You could accelerate to such a degree that he would basically splat off it, yeah.
He's not a Jedi. He can't predict when another car is going to fly by so we can jump on to safety. Just climb. Just go far high in the sky. See what happens. See how hard he hangs on for.
Can you breathe in space?
to truly break them down. 2. Return to the Milky Way.
Okay. No duh.
Oh, yeah.
This should have been forget what happened in Mass Effect Andromeda. I think that would be the best way to put it. Mass Effect Andromeda is not canon. Or really no one gives a shit. Because no one cares. What, a bunch of random people went into a bunch of ships and went to sleep for 600 years or some bullshit? Like, who's going to remember that? Who's going to care? Why even bring it up? So don't even talk about it.
Andromeda isn't actually even considered Mass Effect 4. It's just its own standalone thing. So really, she should be calling it Mass Effect. But that's just me being an arse. So
this is not a good point.
The only way to move forward from a catastrophic event like the close of Mass Effect 3 is to have the confidence to tackle it head on.
Oh, that UI. Look at that. Look at that map screen. All cluttered up and you don't know what's what.
Close of Mass Effect 3 is to have the...
It could have been a bit cleaner. I'll give it that, yeah.
Yeah, right. Because have it so like you had to have points of interest, and then when you hover your mouse over, it then presents the things that you need.
Why is this done like 11%, 10%? That's a really...
that's the exploration of planets that you do for your planet scanning, which was oh so great. Everybody loved it.
It's like playing Robotron without the action. It's like, oh wow, look at that. There's Reapers coming after me. I can't shoot them in my spaceship.
That has a Phoenix cannon.
That can kill Reapers. The best pilot in the galaxy can't pilot for some reason. I can't imagine that'd be really a fun minigame. You have like EDI doing anti-networking protocol crap, and they're like stalling them and slowing them down. And then Joker's doing these maneuvers and shooting them. It's all on the maps. It's like that'd be kind of cool. It would be cute. It wouldn't be like a full-blown RTS or third-person space combat sim, but you could simplify it. That would have been better than just running away off the map. The map, which was just a big circle.
Sorry, I just thought of something that just popped in my head. When they talk about Anthem, the anthem of creation, it's like, the woman's like, I hear the anthem. What does it say? I'm only human after all. Don't put the blame.
Even after watching those cutscenes, we still don't know what the hell the anthem of creation is. It's imagine reading Dune, and you have no idea what the water of life is, or what spice is. Like, you have no clue. It's just like, what is this thing? It does stuff. Like what? Anything. It's like, what? It does anything? It's a voice in your head? a joke.
Confidence to tackle it head on. Multiple characters that know of Shepard's actions, who could discuss them accordingly.
He's not the catalyst. He's a very naughty boy.
We're all green now. We could have a perfect world.
I mean, the whole ending sequence, I just sort of, because it's that nonsensical, because it breaks that many things, you can consider it non-canon. So when people talk about what endings do we need to choose, it's like, well, none of them. You can make your own because the ending doesn't give two hoots. And Mac Walters, who basically redesigned the whole thing about being synthetics versus organics, was that a present theme in Mass Effect Andromeda? No, because the AI ends up saving everyone. Without the AI, everyone would have died. So it kind of goes against the entire thing. It's what the catalyst is actually pointing out. Ugh.
Yeah, just
angry.
Just pick one ending and run with it. Except synthesis, of course, because synthesis is insane. So the other, like, you could work with the second with control, I guess. That would be a totally different game, though. I don't know. Just pick an ending, run with it. I'm sure you can get a writer with their salt.
Just retcon the destroy end.
Yeah, pick the simplest one would do it. But I say whatever the best ideas from a writer is, and run with it. That's all you have to do. Basic stuff.
For the player to have this quasi fourth wall breaking discussion with the writers would be best.
Whoa, wait, what the hell are you talking about?
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
That came out of nowhere, like the Mass Effect 3 ending.
Let's listen to what she has to say.
Of Mass Effect 3 is to have the confidence to tackle it head on.
Okay.
Multiple characters that know of Shepard's actions, who could discuss them accordingly, allowing for the player to have this quasi fourth wall breaking discussion with the writers would be best.
What? What the hell does that even mean? You're going to have a conversation with the writers through characters that knew Shepard and knew him best? What? What is that? That doesn't happen in stories, lady. What is she talking about?
Buy more DLC to influence the writers.
I think what she's trying to say is that a writer is going to explain what happened to the ending of Mass Effect 3 through a character like Garrus, so much to the point. No, that's even if this is the case, so much to the point that it would break the lore or the believability of the world, which she means by a fourth wall break into the audience, which is, no, you wouldn't do that. That's stupid. What I think she meant was that the writer would have to have like a writer on board moment where it's like, oh, okay, they're clearly doing that technique to explain away the ending or to lampshade the ending so that we can believe it. That it like, oh, really? You blew up the galaxy. Oh, yeah, but not everyone died. Oh, okay. And they go through the motions of what that means.
Yeah, I mean, the easy way to do that is you have the writers in the room, and on one side of the room you'll have Dune, you'll have Babylon 5, you'll have DS9, all the great science fiction series. Then on the left-hand side you'll have the recent Star Trek stuff. And if the person turns to the left, which is where the new Star Trek stuff is, they'll get a 10,000 volt shock until they read and this is actually some good science fiction. It's like shot collars that you use on dogs. If you look over to that direction, you will get shocked.
Yeah, there are many ways to continue the story after Mass Effect 3. None of them are pretty, but it can be done.
Yes.
Just not the way she's describing, because that's just bizarre.
Where your squad mates would chime in with their opinion on the rumours of the synthetic ending or meeting the space child. This, of course, means picking one ending from the three and running with it.
Yes.
Not
yes.
really. But
You could. I mean, that's the thing.
yeah, you could.
You can't
But
just import your save and say they all could have happened. It's like, no.
Right. It'd be all wildly different. Like, everyone's green, everyone's living in harmony. Mass Effect, everyone's green. The game.
Oh boy, that what's really scary about that is because everyone's the same. Does that imply everyone's going to eat each other because they have to eat something? So is everyone Soylent Green? Is everyone sentient? Are plants sentient? Like vegetarians would cease to exist. because you just be eating everyone or everything.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder about what would be the sustainability, because since now they've turned every plant life into, because like would humans need to breathe oxygen? Because if they've changed the DNA of plant life, then they might not be producing oxygen. So it's a bit of a. Does Casey and Mac know like something called science and the basics of said science, or are they just kind of in la la land?
I think Casey does because he's an engineer, but I don't think he was part of the writing team.
Well, he's actually the one that was actually telling Mac to trim down the end.
I know. It's like, Casey, you can't, there's nothing to trim. We have to add more. And then the fans come back, oh, yeah, okay, maybe we should add some more. It's like, no, don't add more. It's horrible. Do it over. Make it all a dream. Do anything.
But this could be accomplished through a menu option or a series of recap videos for newcomers.
Oh God, yeah, that'd be great. Last time on Mass Effect.
Previously on Mass Effect.
Exactly what they did with Anthem. It's like, here, this happened 30 years ago. Some guy blew up a city. The end. Like, what? Let's not do that, guys.
Either way, the aftermath of those decisions is interesting enough to make up for any lack of knowledge on the part of the player. Point being, travelling to the Andromeda Galaxy didn't actually achieve anything, or
No shit.
provide a worthwhile purpose other than to mentally distance players from the events of Shepard.
No shit.
It's like they messed up so badly that it's like, if Mass Effect was a house, they did it so badly that they just moved to another country.
Yeah, the point she's making is that you should go back to the Milky Way. It's like when we said originally, just forget Andromeda ever happened. You can do that. That's fine. Just do that.
Every major action in the plot could have happened back home, and it's here
Not every major one, but
That would be a very confusing plot. It's like, the Ket came out of nowhere, and this part of the galaxy. It's like, really? Okay.
no, I actually, I may have actually said this ages ago, but I may have suggested that the remnant technology, like, let's say we were to redo Mass Effect 4 here, the remnant stuff that you'd be finding wouldn't actually be like an ancient alien civilization. It'd actually be the remnants of the previous colonies that you're revisiting. You know, it's like, you know, these people knew that they were dying, and so they decided to kind of house their knowledge in one place like the Protheans did, and so you're actually hearing echoes from the past.
That'd be interesting.
You call them remnants?
Like, the only way to explain this in the Milky Way is that imagine you took a relay, and then you destroyed the only relay that connected to the rest of this galaxy. Then you could say, oh, okay, everyone, like, we're talking about a galaxy, so it's going to take hundreds of years to get to another part of the galaxy anyway. I could buy that, but it's really tough to explain the technology and the limited alien life and the limited number of planets, like all the stuff that you have to explain that happened in Andromeda. And of course, what we know of Andromeda is a joke anyway. We're talking about an entirely virginal galaxy for us to explore, and there's like two alien species, three. One of them is long gone. It's silly. So you have to do a hell of a lot more effort and work to make us believe that there's an entire section of the Milky Way galaxy that's cut off from everything else. And I mean, that's a hell of a setup. So I know what she's trying to say. It's just like, that's a lot of effort.
Where the franchise should belong, especially considering the contrived way Bioware wrote the reason why all the Milky Way races were still around. 1.
Why was that? Why were the Milky Way races still around? What was the contrived reason? I have no idea. I'm trying to think.
The whole everyone getting onto a big boat and traveling off to Andromeda, I think it was.
Yeah, but
That's not what you can try, but it's convenient, I suppose, because that's what you would want to do if you want to survive.
I thought she meant why no one else went onto the Ark. And they stayed. It's like, what? Again, this is a dumb point she's making, so I'm not going to bother with it, but it's... I don't get which her points are, and the main point is just forget about Andromeda. You'll be fine. But let's see where number 1 point is.
Tons upon tons of new aliens, plant life, and environments.
Okay, this is an issue of lore. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but she's saying tons upon tons.
Yeah.
Okay. For an established galaxy or universe of lore, and your main point is to make it bigger, you can tell a great story without establishing any new lore. Maybe having one new piece, like a new alien species, could work, but you're still telling a good story with humanized characters. So it doesn't need new aliens. You can tell a great story with just the Asari, or just the Quarians, or just whomever. So you don't need more. In fact, I would argue you need less. So
yeah, you could actually have it in terms of, if let's wave the magic wand here for a moment. When let's say you're revisiting the Milky Way, let's say you've got a human expedition from a new planet, and you're revisiting, let's say, Turians, Asari, and each one is actually culturally different from one another. Like, those Asari are different because they grew up in that environment, which has made them like that.
Right.
And you'd have like different, because everyone's separated after, let's say, a couple of 100 years. So everyone would be different from another. There's no uniformity. Like, the Taurians and Asarians, Solarians, like they all went for their kind of unification process. And now that's shattered as a result of what Shepard did.
I think the Asari would have one of the most diverse cultures ever, just because of the nature of the reproduction. They literally absorb the genetic, or not absorb, but randomize their genetics based on another species, and they live with that species, raising their child in a whole other culture, in whole other parts of the galaxy. They're pretty much amalgamating, socially at least, their species with other species. Whereas you'd have like the Quarians, who are just a bunch of nomads struggling to survive, and they would just have their own very specialized and not undiverse, but very specific kinds of social norms that vary based on, what what type of life ship you developed on, what type of jobs did you get when you left for your pilgrimage, that sort of thing. So there's plenty of ways to have great stories without adding to the lore that already exists. And instead of new aliens, I would say new societies, new cultures, new space stations, new sections of the Citadel, new factions. I think that's the social aspect, not the physical aspect. I think would be totally fine. But you don't need to reinvent the wheel here, which is what she wants.
Bioware essentially wrote themselves a get out clause when it came to expanding the variety of aliens and races within Mass Effect.
They did? What was the get out clause? What is she talking about?
Labeling of council and non-council races.
What? That just because they're non-council races doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. I'm going to invent the squid people. It's like, why?
I mean, maybe it might be the animation rig that they could reuse. I mean, that's like, you can have your humanoid one, your Hanar one, your one that looks like a Taurian, which will also be used in other alien races like the Quarians and what have you. It's like, okay.
I mean,
good game design.
You could have a whole story and flesh out the Hanar world. You could do this. You could do the culture of them, but you wouldn't need to reinvent a new alien species to do so. It just, like, I don't think she has any experience with telling stories that, like to make them. I don't get what she's getting at. This is kind of silly. Like we already have aliens. We don't know everything about them. Get a writer. Say, hey, I want you to write about Asaris that have been born from Krogans. Go. And make a culture out of that. And we have examples already, matriarchs and whomever that were born from Krogans. Ba-boom. That's fine. Use that. Nothing new. Great. I'd pay attention. That's interesting.
The latter introduced us to the Batarians in Mass Effect 1 and the Vorka in Mass Effect 2. It's a way to play into the more hostile...
Yeah, well, it's her accent.
But I'm English as well, mate, so it's not an accent thing.
I don't know. All you guys sound different to me.
Racist.
or less cooperative aliens that don't want to take part in transgalactic diplomacy.
So you want to invent some new ones? Okay.
It's an easy sell that there are entire colonies, tribes, and ways of life.
You could do things like the kind of... I'm trying to think now which science fiction it was now where in order to live on or to adapt to new environments, because obviously you could sort of say environments are changing across the Milky Way and what have you, or they've been forced to live on these other worlds, they've had to go through genetic modification, so that would give a different visual aspect to Asari, Taurians, humans, Solarians, and so on and so forth. So you'd actually have, let's say, so you could have the same model rig, but just with different looks to them all. It's like, oh, they're from the Styx Hammer section, they're from the Horsehead Nebula and things like that. You know, kind of give them a bit more individuality. Yeah,
imagine having Earth as like a melting pot of all these different alien species and the problems that arise from that. Or even Asari apparently has the most sophisticated advanced culture. Imagine what kind of world they have when they start having Quarians and Turians and whomever walking around there. That's like how much more diverse do you need to get to make this more interesting? I mean, what this points to is quantity over quality, which is not a good standard to follow. You're just saying we want more stuff. It's like, well, I can give you modified stuff, which is even better. It fleshes out an existing thing, which I would rather have. They did that with writers from Star Trek. Peter David did the Imzadi books, which are basically romance novels based off Star Trek between the relationship of Deanna Troi and Commander Riker. So he fleshed out the culture of the Betazoid and their marriage rituals. You know, they're all naked and what have you. But he was allowed to do that in a side story or just a series of books. That's it. That's all you got to do. Just give us another aspect of what's already there and flesh it out.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so imagine how diverse Quarians are. Let's see that. I'd love to see Quarian culture even more. That was the most interesting part of Mass Effect 2, to me.
It's like, well, humans as well. Like, there's too much emphasis. I get the idea that the Alliance is the face of humanity, but it's just a representative in terms of the galactic community. On Earth, there's still nations. There's still probably the United States, Canada, and each one of those actually has their own independent military and spaceship. It's just the Alliance is the bulk of the military force that is used to defend the outer colonies.
And that was one of the storylines behind Babylon 5 as well as Crusade, where it's this whole political struggle. And we have politics on Earth. Was it Terra Firma, I think? There were no other political parties. Like we didn't have any argument. Like let's learn about humans. Let's learn about aliens, not new ones. We don't need new ones. Just give us the ones we already like, and give us more of that. This is what I don't get with this whole number one point, is that you know what you like, and now you want what you don't know, what you might like. Like no. Get more Turians, get more Asari, and everything you know, and get more of it. Not give us other, like, how many more new aliens do you need? Why? Just because? No, that's a dumb reason. Give us the things we like, and more of it. Give us more culture. I want to know more words in the Korean language. I want to know more.
The Rachni. Let's explore the Rachni.
Yes. Give us more. I want to know. They're amazing. They're the most alien species we've got to look at, aside from the Protheans, that we didn't get a chance to learn about at all. I want to know about them. That's it. Just give us what we want. You're essentially making more aliens. You may as well be telling another story. Make another IP and build that. Jeez.
Outside the governmental ring that we've interacted with before. But outside of setting Mass Effect 5 in the same basic timeline as the trilogy, there is also the possibility of appending that world we knew entirely, having a character piece together what happened some hundreds of years in the future, thereby allowing Bioware to pick and choose which remnants of the canon they'd like continued, and what new stuff they can throw in as evolution comes in its wake.
I did not understand what she said about hundreds of years in the future.
I think she just kind of means like a character that's basically like she was a point from earlier where you just have a character just sit down and explain in a massive exposition dialogue scene. And then in this time, this is when this happens because, you know, this person's going to know everything that happened in the galaxy, clearly. You know?
I think they should just focus on what they've got. This is so basic stuff, man. What are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, the way I would have done it is the events would basically be... this is me just winging it, by the way. It would basically be that everyone's civilization is kind of based off the... what Liara did with her seeding program. So everyone has a kind of basis to like understanding. So when you meet these people, you kind of talk to their AI, their VI representative, and you kind of go like, "Oh right, that's that culture," and it's actually been understanding them for years. And you kind of go like, "Oh right, okay, that's interesting."
I suddenly imagined Liara inventing Fallout vaults, and she launched them into the galaxy.
No, I mean like just the actual technology pieces. Like, yeah, we should give them to like colonies, like just the box of just basically the black box of technology. Not like she's going to start drilling, like she's going to start digging with a spoon into each.
No. But like, imagine this is one of her backup plans, and we get to see what happens 25 years later, and they emerge from their vaults. It's like Fallout, it's Mass Effect.
Mass Effect, the fallout of the ending. Is the ending over yet? Is it done?
The whole world's charred. It's like, yep, this is Earth now. All the super mutants come out. There's your new aliens, good. Super mutants. There we go.
But I think it would be great to like walk and to like, you know, have a glance around great battles that we never saw to like flesh out what happened. You know, just seeing the remnants of just the utter complete destruction and chaos that the Reapers caused upon the galaxy.
I think
we never saw in Mass Effect 3.
You can do a series of side stories in Mass Effect 3 that like that N7, was it Ripley, the Vanguard chick on that one side mission. Like there you can use grunts, you could use N7 agents, you could use Spectres, it doesn't really matter. And tell stories that happen within that timeline. You can still do that. You could do it after, you could do it before, you could do it during, doesn't matter. Just, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And she's reinventing, or she's adding a second wheel on top of the existing wheel because she wants to. It's just like, just give us the same wheel, but make it richer and deeper and stronger and faster. And like, just do that. That's all you gotta do. Same old, different perspective. Done. People will buy it, I guarantee. If they could buy Andromeda, they can buy that. God knows what Andromeda was exactly. Well, I think that's it. Let's see what else she has to say.
Anything that lets us return to that sensation of genuine discovery from the original would be welcomed with open, wide, stretched around arms.
Okay, well, that's what they tried to do with Andromeda, and didn't turn out so well. So, no, they're not so good at reinventing the wheel.
Well, that was basically a fanfic level of writing. That was the problem. It was like
True.
it's like imagine people that watched a playthrough of Mass Effect but didn't actually understand like any. And then so it's like basically J.J. Abrams of Star Trek. Basically, that's the best way to describe it. Yeah, I know Star Trek, Trekkies, conventions. I know all about that. I'm gonna make a Star Trek movie now. Be right back.
Yeah, this is the ramblings of a fanboy or fangirl, and she's sort of just picking the things she likes and just shooting them out there without actually arguing before making a video.
You know, it would be one of the top the number one reason why. That one would be BioWare, sell the Mass Effect IP to someone else, please.
Oh.
Just give it to someone else, because clearly you are not capable of doing such things. Sorry, Lassie, but it's time to be put down.
Give it to, geez, who would you give it to? Obsidian?
Yeah, you got Obsidian, because they're with Microsoft now, which ironically enough, when BioWare were making Mass Effect 1, they were with Microsoft. So
Yeah.
it's there, you know.
I think Tim Kaine would go nuts, though. I think Tim Kaine, if he was involved, he'd be like, okay, we got to put some serious comedy. We have to make as much jokes as possible.
Oh, God.
All these tongue-in-cheek jokes, fart jokes, every kind of joke imaginable. Just throw it together. It's like, thanks, Tim. Glad you're helping in the story department. Can you go back to coding now? Well, we'll just finish this off and we'll say goodbye.
Please, come into this wide hug, BioWare.
Ah,
I miss you.
no.
I miss Mass Effect 2.
No.
Kill that thing with fire. Hit it with a stick. Do something.
Kill it. Destroy that child.
Demon child.
You're in a nightmare scenario. Destroy everything.
And that's our list. What do you want to see from Mass Effect 5? Is it coming? Is it real? Do you want it? Let me know in the comments section below.
All right. Well, that was enlightening. I don't think she has bad ideas. I think if she had maybe 5 minutes to talk them with someone, she'd have even better ones. But this is clearly the musings of a fangirl, and it needed a writer in the room to tell her, yeah, you don't need to do all that crap. You just got to tell good stories. And we'd be very happy. I think BioWare should have known its audience since the first games that they've been making. People still talk about Jade Empires. I still haven't played it. People still talk about Baldur's Gate and KOTOR. That's your fan base, guys. That's all you got to do. Whether you're flying around in a mech suit for a looter shooter, it does not matter. It's why you're shooting at that gun. It's why you're exploring. It's why you're talking to people that matters. That's it. Give us good reasons, and we will buy your games. Doesn't matter if it's Mass Effect or Dragon Age or a contemporary setting. That's all you need. So, hey, thanks guys for sitting off or sitting with us and listening to us ramble on about WhatCulture. I think they're a nice bunch of guys. Again, they're a video game news channel, so that's their skill set and experience, and they do a good job. So I'm glad that they made this video. But I think everyone, even in chat, can give us their specific reason. And I'm guessing it's story based. I'm guessing it's all story based. It's not necessarily gameplay based. I would love to see an RTS. I think I'd love an XCOM style game. I think all kinds of genres would work in this universe. It's how and why, and that's it. So thanks guys for your time, and we will see you next week, hopefully on Saturday, with another video to look at. Take it easy.